for Macpherson.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the National Disability Insurance Scheme is one of Australia's most significant social reforms. It exists because Australians believe that people with significant and permanent disability deserve dignity, independence and the opportunity to live full lives. Now, this view is entirely shared by the Coalition, but today what we're seeing is that families across the country are deeply anxious, and this isn't because they oppose reform, but because they fear that this government's asking them to carry the cost of its failure to properly manage the scheme. But on the other side, there's also the anxiety that the Australian taxpayer has, who has no issue with providing support to those who are in genuine need, but who right now feels that they're being ripped off and rorted. And we've seen this across the country. We've seen it on social media. We've seen it playing out across the media as well. So there are a few different points I'd like to make in the course of my contribution, Deputy Speaker. Firstly, it is that the Coalition is a supporter of the NDIS. It is that sustainability matters. It is that fraud and waste must be tackled, that participants and families must not pay the price for government incompetence, and that reform must be careful, transparent and compassionate. Now, when I speak to people across my electorate, we hear about their views on the NDIS, and at a time where Australians are really hurting due to this cost of living crisis, it's not unexpected that people raise with me their concerns about the areas of government expenditure, and one of those that I hear about is the NDIS. Now, the NDIS was originally expected to cost $13.6 billion, but what we've seen is that the NDIS bill is approximately $50 billion each year, and it's projected to increase towards the $70 billion mark by the end of the decade. We have 761,426 participants nationally, with around 3,790 participants in my electorate of Macpherson, and we have a growth rate of around 10.3%. Now, the issue is not, and this is not what we're discussing, whether the NDIS should exist or not. The issue is whether the government's able to make it sustainable without leaving Australians with a disability worse off, and that is something that is very important in the context of this debate, because at the end of the day, it's about people. It's about the parents, about the carers, the siblings, the support workers, and the people who are doing their best to try and live independently, and people who have gone through an experience or who have been born with or developed certain conditions or issues that, through no fault of their own, have put them in a difficult situation. Now, these people are not the problem. The problem is that, as with many different forms of government expenditure, there are people who can misuse the system. There is fraud, there's waste, there's weak oversight, poor administration and a lack of clarity, and that is exactly what the government must address. Now, this is, I'll point out, Labor's third attempt to slow NDIS growth. And that's quite concerning, because we have seen this gradual increase, and it's a gradual but it's a persistent increase in the cost of the NDIS. But we've also seen, conversely, in the conversations that I've had with people across my electorate and with people who have written to me from across the country, we've also seen a reduction in the public confidence in the NDIS. And without that public confidence, there is no public licence for it. And this is where the integrity of the system becomes so critically important. In 2023, Labor promised a growth cap of 8%, and then they moved that target to 5.6%, but we're still seeing growth sitting at the 10.3% mark. And what the government's now trying to do is aim it at 2%, which, as you can see based on the record, doesn't really instil a sense of confidence. The government's announced savings before it's properly explained the human consequences. And I said at the outset that I'd say most people I speak to, in fact, most Australians would say to me that we have absolutely no issue in putting out money to support Australians in genuine need. The issue becomes where it is not used effectively or where those people do not actually get the benefit of the funds that are being used. But this bill creates a new eligibility framework, new assessments, reassessments of existing participants, but it doesn't clearly explain how those assessments work, who conducts them, what the thresholds are that apply, and where people go if they are removed from the program. And so families are being asked to trust a system that the government itself has not fully outlined or designed, and this is at a time where the level of trust in not only politics and government, but the level of trust in the NDIS is not very high. I'd like to speak to a particular example because this, I think, gives the human element and the human aspect of the NDIS. In my electorate, I've had many people reach out to me who are involved in the NDIS, whether they're participants or they're providers, and they've persistently, since I was elected, spoken about a system that is broken. They've spoken about a system that doesn't actually do what it is intended or what it was intended to do. And the casualties of those inefficiencies, the casualties of a broken system, are people such as 12-year-old Levi. Now, Michelle, who's the mother of 12-year-old Levi, reached out to my office towards the end of last year. Levi has cerebral palsy, and he is a terrific and energetic and enlightening young man. And I had the opportunity towards the end of last year to meet Levi at one of the end-of-year school awards. And Levi's smile absolutely lit up the stage. But Levi and his mum have been going through some challenges with the NDIS, and Levi's mum, Michelle, contacted my office seeking some urgent assistance regarding significant delays in the processing of Levi's NDIS plan. And those issues had been pending since July of 2025. And so they came to my office because Levi hadn't had an updated plan in nearly 5 years, despite the fact that he requires critical supports, including a communication device to assist with his transition to high school. And Levi's in a mechanical wheelchair as well. Now, Michelle said to me that her experiences were ongoing difficulties obtaining clear information from the NDIS. She received inconsistent updates and faced communication barriers with staff. And that was particularly worsened, that situation, because of Michelle's own health issues. Michelle had a lung cancer diagnosis and surgery, which then limited her ability to act as a carer for Levi as well. Now, once we reached out to the NDIS confirmed that contact was made with Michelle in November, towards the end of November in 2025, and that matter was referred to the appropriate team for action, and there was it was able to be addressed, and there was an outcome that was favourable for Levi. But the point is, Deputy Speaker, that it shouldn't have to take a situation where the mother, who's obviously going through a lot herself, has to reach out to their federal member of parliament to then make representations on their behalf, because a system that is designed, or that was designed, to protect people exactly like 12-year-old Levi is not working and is broken. And that is fundamentally what we need to be addressing here today. There is indeed, like I said, Deputy Speaker, a story behind each and every one of the names of the people who are involved in the NDIS. And there are many people on both sides, people who are providers and people who are participants in the system, who have their experiences and their stories. But the other side that I will talk to is a part of this debate that has gained a lot of national attention, and that is the fraud issues with the NDIS. And that ultimately pierces at the integrity of the system. And this is where us on the opposition side of this chamber can absolutely strongly support reform, because reform is needed and reform is well and truly overdue. And it's only that reform that will ensure that the funds are preserved to actually go to the right place and to make sure that people like Levi are able to get the support that they need. But what I would say, Deputy Speaker, is that we don't think this proposed legislation is going to fix the NDIS. We don't think this goes far enough. We don't think it will do what it needs to do in order to restore integrity to the NDIS. And so I implore the government to reconsider its approach to the NDIS more broadly, to make sure that we are actually going to address the issues that we have seen in the NDIS. The fact that 94% of providers are currently unregistered is something that prior to entering politics I had absolutely no idea about. It is absolutely shocking that across various industries and various sectors and professional bodies, if you want to practice in certain fields, you need to be registered. But in the NDIS, there was a different standard. And we are also seeing the value of that fraudulent activity really going to the integrity of the NDIS. We're seeing 6 to 10%, according to ANAO's estimates, of claim outlays potentially fraudulent, incorrect or non-compliant. And so based on 2025 spending, that estimates between $2.9 billion to $4.8 billion of leakage annually, which could rise to $8 billion by the end of the decade. And this at a time where Australians are really struggling with keeping up with their own payments. It's Australians who have disabilities who aren't able to access the needs, where people access the care that they need, where people like Levi are not able to get immediate access to the support that he needs, because every dollar that is lost from fraud is a dollar that's taken away from Australians with a disability. What I'd say, Deputy Speaker, is that on the fraud side, taxpayers deserve accountability. Participants deserve protection, and whistleblowers deserve support, not silence. We need to make sure that we build a system that Australians can be proud of, not a system that Australians are concerned about. Because ultimately, if we don't do that, the future of the NDIS and everybody that it supports is in jeopardy. And when I speak to people across my electorate, they talk to me about their needs. And there is no doubt that there is a considerable need on the Gold Coast, as there is, I'm sure, across the country. There is no shortage of funds or of money in this space. What there is a shortage of is efficiency. And those on this side of the House are strongly supportive of making sure that we will absolutely support the government in doing whatever it takes to work with them to ensure that we get through this and we're able to create a system that is going to instill confidence from the public. The government can't continue to claim that it's protecting the NDIS while billions are leaking out through fraud and exploitation. And so we need to make sure that we see reform that doesn't overburden those who are doing the right thing and those who are legitimate providers, those who are legitimate participants. We can't drive allied health workers out. And we're seeing that, I'm seeing it time and time again with the amount of people who work in that space who reach out to me and say that they are overburdened with reporting, overburdened with paperwork, and they're forced to complete paperwork that they feel, and I hear this time and time again, is never read. It's never read by people. So we need to have a system that gets past the bureaucracy, a system that goes directly to the need of the participants. It needs to put the participants first, and it needs to support those who are actually doing the right thing to support those participants and to work with them to actually get ahead. Because at the end of the day, integrity in the NDIS is going to be the only way we can ensure it remains a long-term solution to supporting Australians with disabilities. The NDIS belongs to Australians and to Australians with disabilities, not to governments who are balancing budgets. And so reform is necessary and fraud must be stopped, because we must secure the future of the NDIS, but we must do it without abandoning Australians who depend on it every single day.
Question is that